I would like to call the curriculum committee meeting to order and ask for an approval of the agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Good. All in favor? It's us.
Aye.
Great. And do we have any public comments on the agenda?
I haven't seen any.
Nope, I haven't had any emails.
Okay.
I think people have commented out.
Yeah, I think they've sent praises earlier, so we're done.
I love you, Judy.
All right, so Tim, we've got testing and assessment, and Amy, are you in on this too?
Yep, but Tim will take the lead on it.
So testing and assessment plan, the reality is, as a matter of annual housekeeping, we have to have a testing schedule. And so you will notice the file name says conditional. And so, and again, drew this up before last night, and it's going to come up.
I'm trusting that it's going to.
But even if it doesn't, each of you has a copy
I
of it.
think that.
And so basically, what
I
you
think
need
that
to
is
know
okay, yes.
is
No, the font is.
Oh, okay.
it's the same as last year, just rolled up.
Yeah.
One thing that we know now that we didn't know earlier in the summer is that many, but not all of our testing assessment partners do have ways and endorse ways to administer their assessments out of school if necessary. We have one that doesn't have a particularly full-throated agreement to do that. And we may need to think differently. Do we bring those kids in under enhanced? Do we do something differently? But most of these on here, there's a way to do it. Now, obviously, if the student's taking it at home, you want some supervision. You might look at the information differently than if they took it in the school. So what we're proposing is we go with this. You as a board give us the latitude to make any adjustments on timing or doing or not doing things as experience shows we need to over the next month or two. And then when we're out of the fall testing season, we come back and report to you how it went, and we talk about what might need to be adjusted for the winter and the spring. And that's kind of a way of saying, here we get this moved along, but recognizing there's a ton of uncertainty about this all.
So are you saying that the fall schedule is really catch as catch can?
I think we still have some ones here that we don't know that these would necessarily be our dates, because one thing we don't know is, as we bring kids back in, how do we want to spend the first few weeks? How are we getting materials home? How are we orienting kids? So we might move some of these dates around. Some of these, we're more confident in the home administration. I mean, where we can administer at home, we will. Some of these, that's surer than others. So,
Is it possible?
how's that for a decisive answer?
I like
Judy?
that. Is it possible to get the data we need from just doing the winter and spring testing?
So, probably not. I mean, I think one thing is that since we had interrupted testing in the spring, and we don't know for sure what winter and spring will do, I think where we feel we can do assessments in a reasonable manner, we should, to get the information we can as perfectly or imperfectly as we can. I know I have one content area on here that is pretty adamant they want to do their assessments this fall. So, Mark.
A couple things. One, there's a responses to Pinnell the BAS test?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And so, I think as a district, we really owe it to our families to have a diagnostic as early as possible to see where are these kids coming in now, since we had an abandoned, in the sense of structural school and normal instruction, normal tests. I mean, even the forward test didn't happen. I don't think the spring star happened, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. The last,
And so
Yeah.
that diagnosis is gone. Even if it's not good news, don't we really need, so we can help these kids collectively and individually diagnose as soon as possible, reasonable, whatever the word would be, so we know where they're starting the school year at.
so that's the argument for doing, with all of the imperfections that the different assessment methods might entail. That's one of the biggest arguments for doing this in the fall.
Yep.
Because we do want to get, and again, you don't want to overweight any one assessment item, but it would be good to gather as much information as we reasonably can about our students. Now, I will say this, some of these, the vendors have reached out to us and said, yes, we support home testing. Here's what we suggest for the protocols and the ways to do it. I will say, and this is really Amy's area of expertise, I'm not sure where we are at with respect to Fountas and Pinnell. That's probably, of all the assessments on this
Yeah.
list, that's probably the one that's most in the gray. So Amy, I don't know if you want to
Sure.
speak to that.
I mean, even the PALs, they've said, here's how you could administer it remotely, but you have to recognize that it's non-standard administration. So a lot of this would be just formative. We wouldn't really be able to look at norms and benchmarks because it wouldn't be the standard administration, but it could still give us some good information. For Fountas and Pinnell, they have not digitized any of their materials. They have, not only even stronger than discouraged, I think. I mean, they really said these are not intended for remote administration. So if we wanted to do kind of the reading inventory type assessment, we would either need to bring students in, as part of our enhanced remote, or there are some other tools, some other, informal reading inventories that we could administer, perhaps, one-on-one over Zoom, that sort of thing. So those would be kind of our two options for getting that reading level.
Which, well, the other thing, I guess I wonder if, are there some tests that overlap that still give us, if we were to eliminate one, gives us the data we need, or do we not want to do that because we really need it all?
They're all pretty unique because the primary grades are the only ones that have the PALs. And
Right.
then for second grade, we do have PALs and STAR, so we could look at eliminating one of those. Probably STAR because we'd have to do the PALs for the state still. But other than that, they're all pretty, even though they're literacy, they're pretty unique in terms of foundational skills or comprehension.
Okay. Thank you.
So again, our recommendation would be, recommend this onto the full board, probably for the meeting on the 10th, to approve with the understanding that some of these we may do on different dates, some we may administer at home, some we may look to exercise the enhanced option and bring students on site, which in some ways, if we could swing it, would be a really great way for teachers to get to know their kids and vice versa. And then we'll report back to you when we're through that fall round of assessments and let you know what our experience was.
Okay, I make a motion that we move this on to the full board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Then the other thing, just kind of the last stage of our human growth and development update, did reach out to the other grade levels, had some feedback. You have a printout here. We had some people participate. What you can see is that nobody feels that these are a step back. Some are undecided if they're a step forward, but the majority feel they are. And then there are a few comments on it. If you're wondering what fourth grade number 1 is, that's anatomy. And in the committee's recommendations, that actually becomes something we introduce in 3rd grade, no longer 4th grade. And then, again, just somebody brought up, oral sex. Another person said, well, should somebody other than a classroom teacher, that might be that's something you hear from time to time. That was kind of the gist. There were no real objections. And here is that, 4th grade number 1, and they must not have looked at the 3rd grade because it's moved down to 3rd grade, and that's why they didn't see it in 4th grade. We put some other topics in there. So I mean, from my perspective, 8th and 10th grade health, we're supportive of the changes. I look at this as generally supportive of the changes. I think the wild card is, can we get it all done in a year with everything else we're doing? Probably not. So I think we need to see how much we can accomplish this year and come back and take care of changes, the next year. I mean, and again, are we planning for remote delivery in person? Lots to sort through, but I think this is enough to kind of, I would suggest move along with the process, find opportunities maybe for teachers to work on this. And then as they begin to put this into place, bring the advisory committee back and get some continued feedback from the advisory committee. So, thoughts from you as a committee?
No, I think this was what we're looking for, to move it to the whole board for support.
Very good.
So I'd be happy to make that motion.
Thanks, Mark.
And I would second that. Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So Tim, how will it be presented to the whole board?
So, would like your feedback on that.
Okay.
I think what I would like, one option would be to include the old benchmarks and the new changes. Acknowledge that we did do the connection with middle school health, 8th grade health, grade level teachers and counselors. Feedback was generally receptive. Moving on, maybe with a brief presentation, maybe a 2 or 3 slide deck. And just do it that way. I mean, I think a question I have for you as a committee and as board members, with everything going on, what's the manner that presents you as a board the information you need to have without feeling like this is a 30-minute topic for your busy agendas right now. So.
Is it?
In terms of the scope and sequence, so that's one document, right?
Yes.
How much of the scope and sequence is original language?
So in this, actually I've got some copies I can pass out. If it is black ink and it has a number next to it, it's a carryover, and the number reflects the old numbering in the old scope and sequence.
Okay, so the red are the changes.
And the red are the additions, yes.
So that's the thing I would have asked to be a highlight, because that simplifies what we have to look at as a board.
Yes.
And I would suggest a brief executive summary kind of approach. Do you have questions? And leave it at that. I hate to have to go through both documents in detail. I'd like to believe that board members will read it and know what we're presented before the meeting.
So you're suggesting this is in board book for them to look at ahead of time?
Yes.
and then just have a summary.
Yes.
Because there are certain themes to the additions. And it'd be very easy to kind of chart out those few large themes in an executive summary.
Mhm.
Okay.
Just a question to the committee. Do you feel that the board is aware of the process? It's been a long time. Maybe a sentence or two about the state law that requires the committee that worked on this, that now we're adopting from. I'm not sure that the full board is aware of
Yeah, that would be helpful.
the process that we are kind of narrowed into.
And how thorough it's been.
Yeah, and the timeline. I mean, this has been a 2-year document now.
Yes, this
I
has
think
been a
that-
process.
And we don't have to belabor it, but it's been a while since the board has even had it in their brain. I think that just a very brief review of the process
Yep.
you went through.
Nope, sounds good. Very good.
Okay.
That's excellent feedback.
Is there anything to work on for the next meeting?
So, I have gotten some very positive feedback from staff today, being excited about getting in and working on curriculum and moving forward. Is there anything that you want or need from the board in that regard? Staff development wise?
Well, we do have staff development planned. We have some site-based development. Some of the site teams are looking for, have looked at our high-level plans and have had or are about to have the opportunity to provide feedback on this. I think, judging by our county Zoom meeting today, I think the amount of professional learning we are providing is similar or greater than most of our peer districts, partly because we are doing some voluntary August staff development and also because we did add days to the back to school, which not everybody has done. So from a comparative sense, I think that's fine. This is still a big change. So, I mean, I think what would be helpful is as Amy and I go over our professional development for the next few weeks, we may have a few that we might encourage you as a committee to participate in if you have a chance. Most of these, if not all of these, are going to be Zoomed. It's kind of the world we're living in now. So it'd be very convenient, even if you aren't able to participate in live time, we probably can record them, just so you have a sense about what our teachers are getting. And this is all very new to us. And, you're all 3 retired educators. You're all
Did you say tired or retired?
I think it's both.
retired educators, although the thought occurred to me during the meeting last night as we're talking, where could we find people for virtual sections? I was going,
1, 2.
but I mean, I know firsthand, Mark and Joan, you were master educators when you were in the classroom, and
I was great.
And Judy, by reputation, because we know people in common, I've heard really, but this is all new. And so this is new to our people, and it's certainly new to you. So I think as a board, this would be a great opportunity for you to kind of get a sense of what some of the big principles are. So as these questions come up, as they surely will over the course of the year,
Yes, I would
you
love to
understand
share.
what the big topics are. Yes, Mark?
Okay, so in conjunction with that then, what are the problems with 6.5 or even 5.5 hour meetings? A few things are identified, oh yeah, that's really important, and we need to do it, and then it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those that it seemed to resonate without an official position yet, but one that the board, at least the majority of the board embraced, was providing some sort of incentive for voluntary staff development. Whether that's points or a dollar amount, I don't know. We did sort of ask Randy to have some recommendation for us. And I know you've been involved in that with the PD portion, what's a fair rate, and so I don't know if you're a better point man than Steve, or Steve is in the combination, but I think that's something I would like to have at the meeting on our next board meeting, not the third necessarily, because that agenda looks like it's pretty limited, but the 10th, to encourage people to be getting in here in advance of the formal PD.
So, and Amy's had some thoughts on this as well. That's ultimately a Randy. I'll take this back to Randy because he's doing some other things right now.
Yep.
And I think, something, and Amy could speak to this as well. We've talked about, for all of the needs of our staff, there are some things that are district priorities, and then there are things that I might need because I'm an art teacher, okay? That not everybody might need. So how do you, and also people are at different stages in their professional journey, so how do you have a model that honors those individual or disciplinary differences, but also provides strong incentives for people on a voluntary basis to engage in professional learning that's based on district priorities? And Amy's had the idea about kind of highlighting professional learning that's aligned to our goals and maybe providing some additional emphasis on that. I don't know if you kind of want to speak to that, but I mean, there's still the money piece to it, which Amy and I unfortunately do not print money. We wish we did.
Yeah, I guess I don't have anything, when you were talking, I'm like, what have I said about this? I don't remember. Do you mean like a double
Yeah, the
points
double.
idea or something?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I know some districts have set kind of a priority area, so if you take workshops on equity or something like that, for example, you would get incentivized, so perhaps earn like double points or something like that. But that's not something that we really talked about, through the whole vetting process on the compensation committee, but that was just kind of an idea. The compensation committee was also looking at alternative ways to earn points, so maybe through some leadership positions or things like that, but then obviously our work was kind of disrupted at the end of the year too. So those were just some things that we were thinking about. But for now, I mean, what we're doing is, really trying to highlight, so we have several remote learning opportunities coming up in August, and we're really trying to highlight those and recording them too, so you can attend them live.
So it would be fair to promote compensation for quantity of hours. So, okay, for 25 hours, we can compensate you by either X points or X dollars. The dollar piece, I know we've got to find budgetarily. The point thing, I know some board members might find gratuitous, some teachers might, but they will get it, whether it's this year, next year, the next year, they will get it.
At retirement.
And so I don't really see it as gratuitous, I see it as a good faith effort to recognize initiative. But I'm a little bit of a realist.
So one person that reached out to me said there's a math institute that starts today or tomorrow. Or how is that compensated? Is that do they get paid for going? Do they get points? Is it a choice?
It has evolved over time. After Act 10, we did have some of those opportunities for pay, and we would run them through our summer curriculum hours, so they would appear on that list that you all approve annually. But now I think we've transitioned everything to points.
Okay.
Lit Fest, although we canceled Lit Fest this year, Science Institute, Math Institute, all points based now.
So staff are still doing those summer improvements for points. So it isn't a dead horse.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, and it doesn't seem like we have a big budget to work with. So you know, if you could have a conversation with Steve and Randy, maybe we could offer points for people who want to get going.
I mean, I think, you know, the changes we're working through are very significant, and it's hard to have, you know, so, you know, saying that compared to other districts, we're having a comparable or better amount of professional learning for our people, that's a first question, but that's not the highest bar. I mean, because
Right.
everybody has more that they need. And some disciplines it's very specialized in. I mean, I know not everybody in music, but certainly our music leaders this summer have, I mean, music's an area that really is transformed by the threat of COVID. And so I can tell you that Molly and Jamie in particular have been immersed, and these are two dedicated professionals to begin with, but they've been immersed in professional learning for some time now because of the unique challenges it presents to music. And I know we have people in other disciplines that have done the same thing. We do, you know, we normally would have a math institute. We punted it later in the summer, and we said we're going to deal with it on a more leveled planning basis than we might normally in response to kind of the challenges we have. So high school team kicked off the process today, and indeed I popped into their Zoom, well, it's a Google Meet actually, for 5 minutes to say hi, see if they needed anything, but hopefully not enough to gum their gears up. And every single member of the high school math team was in that
Great.
on a July afternoon because the work was important.
Good.
But we know people are busy. These are not contracted times for people. So, you know, certainly in terms of kind of getting everybody as much learning as possible, doing it collaboratively so people are aligned in the work with their course teams and Java-like peers, providing appropriate incentives, I think is a good idea. Again, we're not the people that come with the resources. I mean,
You're not the budget.
we're not the budget, so I will take it back to Randy. But I do think if ever there is a time to incentivize high priority professional learning, this year would be a good year to explore the option.
Thank you.
And I think a question I would have for you, and again, I don't know kind of what the sentiment is of the whole board to kind of monitor what we're doing in board of the whole meetings versus where the work of committees resides. But I can't help but notice you're spending a lot of time as a group of 7 in meetings right now. And so I do think it's a discussion to engage in. Are there certain parts of the decision-making clearly is, the big decisions that clearly needs to be the full board of 7. But as we go through this process, are there, I know there are going to be reports and updates you are going to want as a full board, but what will you want as a committee? Because I think, you know, some of the things that we're really going to be focused on, this is not going to be a normal year. We're going to be very focused on the instructional modifications that we need to make, whether we're in enhanced virtual, hybrid, maybe something else if the cloud clears later in the year. And so I think it's an interesting question for you as a board to discuss. What do you want coming through a committee like this, and what should go to the full board? Just so as Amy and I think about what should be coming onto the agendas, that we're being respectful of your time and also of your priorities.
Well, one thing I would think, with the changes, I think this would be the first knock at the door from a parent should be, if I've got some curricular concerns that I want to get some immediate reaction on. And so, one area, just as an example, you and I have communicated with a couple parents with regard to their concern about special needs kids on certain ends of the spectrum, and how we are going to address the stay-at-home or the hybrid model to meet their special needs. I think that's certainly something as a committee would be helpful for us to hear, so that we can share that information and or be a conduit of communication to the whole board if this is an issue that as a board we should be aware of, or that this is what we're doing, that sort of thing.
I guess in spring, there were a number of people who stopped me and asked me about, the whole online delivery model, and I had nothing, no information. And they looked at me like, "You're on the board and you don't know anything?" Those kind of comments. I don't want to know how to do it all, Tim, but I need a level of at least confidence in what they're going to do and be able to respond to people that you meet on the street. So, without the details, I need to know I would like to know the platforms that the different levels are using, maybe a 5-minute presentation to give me a sense of what that means.
And even in terms of how much video face-to-face time there is, and what we can expect. I don't know if I should have been awed, disappointed, or what did you expect when we had certain people commenting about the limited type of communication they did or didn't have.
Right.
And was that acceptable given the format?
Right.
We don't have an answer.
I would like to be able to respond to people with a little bit of knowledge base, and I had none.
That seems to me to be the perfect thing to bring to the curriculum committee then.
Yes.
I mean, that's definitely something that we can do some demos as you're asking, or, just.
I would appreciate that.
I'm not sure the whole board has an interest in that, but as a curriculum
But I
committee, we
think
would.
as we do it here, and I think you're right, I don't know how much of the whole board has an interest in the curriculum component, but I think we could at least offer, are
Right.
you having questions? Have the community, are they questioning you about the platform and what's being done? And maybe, at some point, probably not in the next month, but, let's let the dust settle. Maybe at a full board meeting, we can kind of help navigate through a little bit of knowledge base for everybody so that we all kind of have a sense of the expectation of our teachers and of what our students are being asked to do.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and we will certainly be doing what we hope is a very good job of communicating many of these things directly to parents. However, one nice change we've made is that there was a time when curriculum committee meetings occurred, and if you came to the meeting, you knew what happened, or you looked in board book. But now we are recording for the district channel curriculum committee meetings. So if it comes in here, and a community member has a question, they can look at the presentation. And similarly, you're a committee of 3 on a board of 7, but in the interest of being responsible with all of your time as elected officials, if somebody not on the committee has a question about something that was presented at committee, it's very easy today for somebody to pop in and view the archive of the meeting and be better informed without necessarily then bringing something onto your agenda as a whole. So
I agree.
Amy and I can definitely work on that for you.
I would I would be very interested in being included in any of the staff development opportunities. If they're virtual, depending on the time and the schedule, at least, I would just like to see, I'm very interested in that whole
Yep.
platform. That's Greek to me right now.
We have a flyer that went out to staff a few days ago. We can send the three of you the flyer,
Perfect.
and you can take a look at that. That could be a starting point. And then certainly we have some things planned for our back-to-school period as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. All right. So, Tim, do you have something for upcoming meetings, or we're good?
I think kind of the discussion that we just had, I think has
Yeah.
been very helpful for Amy and me in terms of thinking about this. We don't necessarily see a need for a meeting, so this is kind of the meeting prior to the August 10th meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see, unless you feel otherwise, a practical purpose in this committee meeting in advance of the regular September meeting. But I think we would look to schedule a meeting in September where we could begin to provide an update on some of the topics we just discussed.
Perfect.
So,
Okay.
All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Buddy? Good? We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.